Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back to the Maverick News channel, everyone. Hello, new viewers and Mavericks from all over the world. We have a stacked show for you tonight, including a casting call, which I will explain later in the broadcast. First up, though, Premier's meeting coming up tomorrow. Top of the agenda, trade between Canada and the U.S., which gets us to story 2. Howard Lutnick, Trump's chief trade guy, on Face the Nation today, doing what? Attacking Canada on trade. We have the MAGA base meltdown continuing over the Epstein files, even though Trump is trying to minimize damage, saying that he still has massive support from his base of supporters. That remains to be seen and is questionable, with some even questioning how authentic this president is now, targeting him, accusing him of lying, of being fake. That's why tonight's thumbnail for this broadcast is King of Fake. Donald Trump, the king of fake, the perpetual victim, always the victim, using self-martyrdom as a shield against attacks, political attacks, and to shield himself from the truth, I think, sometimes, of surrounding his actual escapades. So there's all that. Plus, we have Zohran Mamdani leaving the country. We have the immigration issue top of the agenda here tonight as well. And fueling all of that, we have the arrest of a 14-year-old young offender in North York, Ontario, which is in the Greater Toronto area for our U.S. viewers, on a second-degree murder charge related to a stabbing and murder a few days ago in the GTA. All that, and then, I'll explain what this casting call is all about. It's something you guys can participate in as we continue to explore the possibilities that this brand new social media medium presents to us. Yeah, it's an interesting proposition. Stay with me. More ahead, right after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I'm back, and so are you. And that's a good thing as we begin to dig into tonight's top news stories. So, where shall we begin? Let's begin at the beginning with a look ahead, actually, to tomorrow, Canada's premiers are gathering in Ontario's cottage country for a critical 3-day meeting. Well, it actually started today, but I think they really kind of will start to dig in tomorrow. The Council of the Federation, hosted by Ontario Premier Doug Ford in Muskoka, comes at a pivotal time for Canada's economy. The premiers are set to tackle pressing trade issues driven by U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs impacting industries like steel and aluminum. Sources report the meeting will focus on strengthening Canada-U.S. trade negotiations and addressing the ripple effects of these tariffs on domestic industries. Now, back on Tuesday, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, not back on Tuesday, on Tuesday, Prime Minister Mark Carney will join the premiers, so that's 2 days from now, will join the premiers to discuss intensifying trade talks with the United States. The agenda also includes a push to remove interprovincial trade barriers to boost Canada's economic resilience. And Doug Ford, who has championed free trade within Canada, has already signed agreements with several provinces, as we have reported here on Maverick News, to eliminate trade restrictions. And other premiers, like Nova Scotia's Tim Houston, are echoing that call for action. Key priorities include speeding up major infrastructure projects, such as pipelines and mining in Ontario's Ring of Fire region. However, Indigenous communities have raised concerns, emphasizing the need for proper consultation. British Columbia Premier David Eby is also expected to advocate for equal attention to softwood lumber exports, a critical issue for his province, alongside Ontario's auto sector and Alberta's energy projects. The premiers will also discuss energy security, emergency management, public safety, but trade remains the top focus as Canada navigates this challenging economic landscape. And a bizarre, twisted, weird negotiating environment. Just ask anybody, any of the key players in the auto industry or the auto sector in Canada. Where was the headline I saw today? On the Canadian side, there was an executive who says that dealing with, let me see if I can find you the headline. I wasn't going to show you this, but now I'm thinking I should. Says that right here, it's right there. Look at this headline. And I think there's truth to this. Auto industry expert says says trade negotiations with the U.S. is like dealing with a mob boss. I don't know if you can see that. I'm kind of hovering over it. This is on the CTV news site tonight. And that is right there. Center of the screen, just to the right. They pushed the story down a little bit, but that is kind of where we're going. And I'm not surprised. You shouldn't really be surprised by that, because if you think of where Trump came from, New York, construction industry, development, always dealing with trade unions, and I would say probably even his fair share of mob bosses over the years, he learned the realities of trade negotiations from the School of Hard Knocks, right there on the street, learning from experience, not necessarily just from a textbook. And that is the reality of things in large part. So I understand why some of these more, shall we say, highbrow politicians, bureaucrats dealing with these trade negotiations are coming in and dealing with Trump. And it's like, who is this guy? What is this style all about? It's because he's bringing the style of the street, the tough union style negotiations to the bargaining table at the international level. Not to mention the fact that he's also engaging in the use of tariffs, which is unorthodox in this day and age, kind of poo-pooed and dismissed by the vast majority of today's economists as being a tool that really doesn't bring mutual prosperity or maximize prosperity across the board. Trump looking at things in terms of a zero-sum game. Anyway, it's all fuel for the fire, and we got more of that today on CBS on one of these weekend editorial shows. Face the Nation. Howard Lutnick, here he is, bashing Canada, saying that we up here in Canada, we just don't provide access to the market for the US, which is not true, not even close to true. But hey, whatever puts the US in a better bargaining position in the court of public opinion, here we go.
We have a plan called USMCA, U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement. Virtually 75% of all goods coming from Mexico and Canada already come in tariff-free. The president said, look, unless you stop this fentanyl and close the border, we're just going to keep tariffs on the other 25%. And that's what he has on. So don't be confused about it. The president understands that we need to open the markets. Canada is not open to us. They need to open their market. Unless they're willing to open their market, they're going to pay a tariff. That's a simple message the president has. It's fair trade. It's reciprocal trade. Why should we have our country be wide open while theirs is closed? This is an 80-year wrong that President Trump is trying to fix, and our businesses are going to really, really enjoy it. I think the president's going to open between $300 and $400 billion of opportunity for Americans. That's 1.5%, up to 1.5% GDP growth, because the president's going to open all these markets up. Yeah. You saw it with Vietnam. You saw it with Indonesia. You're going to watch all these other countries decide if they want to do business with America. Let's just open our market up to America. That's opportunity that President Trump is bringing.
Well, that's rhetoric. The reality is the Canadian market is very open to the United States and always has been, especially under NAFTA and the USMCA, which Trump signed and negotiated with Canada during his first presidency. Over half of everything that we import into Canada comes from the United States. Over half. That's a pretty open market. And that's not to say that there couldn't be more coming into Canada as well. That's just because that's what demand dictates. And the vast majority of those goods, the vast majority of everything imported from the US into Canada comes in duty-free. Very little in the way of tariffs in certain sectors, dairy, poultry, those industries in particular. Yes, there are tariffs in place, but that is not to say that it's an unfair trade practice. What is going on there is that we just don't import very much dairy or poultry from the United States because we have different standards, and we have supply management systems in place here in order to provide price stability. Critics say, and I have pointed out, this issue multiple times, especially in the dairy industry, it's about price stability and food security for Canada and protecting smaller producers, smaller farm operations in Canada from massive U.S. agribusiness and big U.S. agri corporations. That's why those policies are in place. Not everybody agrees with it. It is controversial, but that's the way it is. And I would say it isn't an unfair trade policy on the Canadian side because we do not dump product into the United States either. We've basically just said, hey, we produce enough for our market, for our country. We don't need to import from the US. And we want to make sure that our food supply is secure. Food sovereignty. I hear people on the freedom side, the Maple MAGA side, talking about exactly those issues, and yet they are so indoctrinated that they don't really look at the details of this issue and just instantly default to Trump is right. Canada sucks. We need to just give Trump whatever he wants. This is unfair. 300% or whatever the tariff is on dairy. That's not fair. It's irrelevant. What we're doing is supplying our own market in order to, as I say, protect some of these smaller farms, and protect food sovereignty for Canada, which is what the freedom-oriented people in this country say they want. And yet, by supporting the U.S. position on this, they actually want to destroy the Canadian dairy and poultry systems of protection in order to make sure that smaller farm operations, including family farms, survive. The critics on the Canadian side, people like Maxime Bernier, argue that we should do away with supply management systems and dairy marketing boards. And the dairy industry in particular has been the one that he's always targeted, saying that it leads to higher prices for consumers in Canada. And indeed, we do make sure that prices remain at what we would call a sustainable level for farmers, which means that prices in the market through the system of supply management, which means that they have quotas. You're only allowed to, or caps on how much milk can be produced and put into the Canadian market. We don't then send surplus milk into the United States. They dump it down the drain in order to reduce supply. And because of the laws of supply and demand, it makes sure that the price of milk remains at a level where the dairy farmers can make enough to survive and continue farming. Now, that again brings me to, and poultry, eggs, those are other areas that are protected on the Canadian side. And let's go right now and take a look at what's going on with poultry. Well, let's look at egg prices. Is it really true, though, that we end up paying more for these products? We'll take a look here right now. We'll go to, I think this is over in Detroit tonight. Here's Kroger again, Supermarket USA. Let's just check the price of eggs. Okay, here's the website. This is real time. $2.99 US dollars, mind you. $2.99 for grade A large eggs. That's the lowest price they have at the Kroger supermarket. Okay, this is, I don't know, is this in New York or is it, either way, it doesn't really matter. This is random US, somewhere near the border. So $2.99, okay, for a dozen eggs. Let's check Canada. So this is Loblaws, and I believe this is in the Toronto area. And same basic product. And it depends on how it's produced, whether, how healthy it is and what they feed the birds, and those issues are always a concern. But I'm just going for the cheapest product, the cheapest eggs in both supermarkets. $2.99 US at Kroger in the US, $3.93 at Loblaws in Canada today. Large grade A eggs. That's the lowest price. So there's a $1 difference. No, there's not. You have to remember, you have to do your conversion, right? So your currency conversion, $2.99 USD today to Canadian dollars equals, let me bring it up for you. So on the US side, they're actually paying, well, if we were to buy those eggs with our Canadian dollar, It would be $4.11. That's what those U.S. eggs would cost us. $4.11. So very close in price. $3.93 versus $4.11. So 10, 20 cents difference on a dozen eggs. Not much of a difference. And that's what Howard Lutnick is complaining about. That they want to come in and they want to supply the Canadian market. And if they do that, then that means a lot of Canadian farmers are probably going to go out of business. Or Canadian farmers will have to ramp up, become much larger, go for much bigger economies of scale to enhance, streamline their operations, cut expenses, get their cost per unit or cost per egg, if you want to look at it that way, down so they can export into the U.S. and get their cost per liter of milk down so they can export into the U.S. and do so competitively. Could we do it? I suppose we could. You might need some sort of government intervention in order to help some of these farmers scale up their operations. I'm not sure what that would ultimately look like. And if the government were to become involved, I think you'd get a lot of pushback and complaints from the U.S. side. They want free trade, but is the U.S. government really involved in these markets? And you think it doesn't have something to do with those ostriches? Yes, it does. You think RFK Jr. is writing those letters along with that grocery store magnate from New York, John Catsimatidis, who also owns that radio station out there? Do you think it's a coincidence that that guy owns a grocery store chain? And he's now involved in this poultry industry, Canadian Food Inspection Agency fight out in British Columbia. And he's got his fingers into the oil industry and the poultry industry, the food industry. You think these things aren't connected? You think it's all about saving those poor, helpless pet birds, all 400 of them, which we're told they've got names for all of those birds? No, there's a lot more going on with that story than meets the eye. Speaking of New York and John Catsimatidis and his grocery store chain, you see that Zoran Mamdani, right? He's the communist, as Donald Trump calls him, the Democrat socialist running for mayor in New York. And he's right under Catsimatidis' skin because of his plan to potentially turn or create government-run grocery stores in New York, which would be in direct competition then with Catsimatidis', what does he call it? Is it Red Apple Group or something? I think they call the company that controls his grocery store empire in New York. And keep in mind that those grocery stores, those are massive operations. He's a multi-billionaire. And the reason they're so large and have such economies of scale is because New York and New York State have a large population. Well, Zoran Mamdani went to Uganda. And he's been told by some people to get out of America because of his ethnicity. Well, he's just using that tonight, saying, yeah, okay, you said to go back. You said to go to Africa, go to Uganda. So that's what I did, but not for the reasons that you wanted me to go there. Here's what he's posting today on social media.
Being a politician means listening, not just to your supporters, but your critics too. And some of these critics, especially on a certain website, have been giving me consistent advice. For example, @SamWhite087. Zoran, go back to Uganda, where you come from and belong. @TeflonGone. Loser, go back to Africa. There are thousands like this from across the country. I hear you. And I agree. I'm going back to Uganda. I'm headed there in a personal capacity to celebrate Rama and I's marriage with our family and friends. But I do want to apologize to the haters, because I will be coming back. And since you will undoubtedly read about this trip in the New York Post, inshallah on the front page, here are a few of my humble suggestions for headlines. MIA, Mamdani in Africa. Uganda miss me. He's completely crazy. He Afra can't be serious. Carl Kampala-Neely investigates Mamdani. Zoe running away.
It's going to be an interesting race for mayor. And we'll see if Cuomo still steps up and runs as an independent, because he got the Democrat support from the party instead of Cuomo. But Cuomo may just run independently, and then we'll see if that splits the vote or how it all pans out. There's so many issues at play there, and so many of them inflammatory. And whoever wins that race, I mean, whoever becomes the mayor of New York, that's not just a municipal position. That's just not a regular mayor's job. That's a national platform. You have an international voice when you have that job. And that guy is a rising star. Whether he can ride that building wave of publicity into the mayor's office and power remains to be seen. We've still got a fair amount of time between now and Election Day in NYC. The MAGA faithful circling the wagons around Trump, trying to protect him, some of them. And Trump posting on Truth Social. Let's go over there right now and do our Truth Social scroll, which has become unexpectedly something of a regular feature here on the program. It's because Trump dominates the news every day. Why is that? I've just come to the conclusion it's because he's really running a show. He truly is. It's not just politics as normal with him. It's a show. It's a reality show on every level. It puts him front and center in the news every single day, because it's not just politics, folks. It is entertainment. Here he is here. The Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. He says there is a big clamoring for this. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams of the storied past. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. Their heritage and prestige is systematically being taken away from them. Times are different now than they were 3 or 4 years ago. We are a country of passion and common sense. Owners, get it done. All of that tapping into the emotions surrounding the issues of race in the United States. Is it different today than it was just a few years ago? Yes and no. Okay, let's scroll back up here and see what else Trump is posting tonight. Trump drops a huge statement. This could be the greatest revolution in financial technology since the birth of the internet. This is wild. What is he getting at? I don't even know.
This could be perhaps the greatest revolution in financial technology since the birth of the internet itself. A lot of people are saying that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Yes? If you say yes, I'm saying yes. I think it's great that you're involved.
I don't know what I can't remember what that's about. I think that's something to do with cryptocurrency. 6 months of winning, sort of. Not quite so much in the last week or two with the Epstein files. Things stacking up wins. Keep on scrolling down. America's decline is over. Yeah, Democrats are in trouble. Greatest Bitcoin explanation of all time.
Chairman Crapo, Ranking Member Brown, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Peter Van Valkenburg, and I'm the Director of Research at Coin Center, an independent nonprofit focused on the public policy issues affecting cryptocurrency and public blockchain networks. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the world's first cryptocurrency, and it works because of the world's first public blockchain network. What does Bitcoin do? It's simple. It lets you send and receive value to and from anyone in the world using nothing more than a computer and an internet connection. Now, why is it revolutionary? Because unlike every other tool for sending money over the internet, it works without the need to trust a middleman. The lack of any corporation in between means that Bitcoin is the world's first public digital payments infrastructure. And by public, I simply mean available to all and not owned by any single entity. Now, we have public infrastructure for information, for websites, for email. It's called the internet. But the only public payments infrastructure that we have is cash, as in paper money. And it only works in face-to-face transactions. Before Bitcoin, if you wanted to pay someone remotely over the phone or the internet, then you could not use public infrastructure. You would rely on a private bank to open their books and add a ledger entry that debits you and credits the person you're paying. And if you both don't use the same bank, well, then there'll be multiple banks and multiple ledger entries in between. With Bitcoin, the ledger is the public blockchain, and anyone can add an entry to that ledger, transferring their Bitcoins to someone else. And anyone, regardless of their nationality, race, religion, gender, sex, or creditworthiness, can for absolutely no cost create a Bitcoin address in order to receive payments digitally. Bitcoin is the world's first globally accessible public money.
And Trump, who was highly critical and skeptical of it, has now embraced it, endorsed Bitcoin and digital currencies during his campaign, and that did win him some support, especially in the Bitcoin community. In fact, he embraced the idea that RFK Jr. came up with of potentially creating a Bitcoin reserve with US dollars, converting them. Not sure that that's actually going to happen, though. Still at the same time saying, I reject and will not approve a central bank digital currency, and yet still in favor of a Bitcoin world. And you have to remember, too, that the vast majority of people use currency exchanges in order to affect trade in various kinds of cryptocurrency, whether it's Ethereum or Dogecoin or Bitcoin or whatever it might be. And in order to convert these digital currencies into US or Canadian dollars, again, you're using online exchanges. And when you do that, there is still a record and a trail of everything you're doing. So don't think that your transactions are entirely anonymous. The only way to conduct a transaction using digital currency anonymously is from one party to another directly. If you're using an exchange, there's a digital trail there that can be traced. And you saw even during the Freedom Convoy, they went after those digital currency donations as well, didn't they? Yes, they did. Here's Trump back to the Epstein issue. The Wall Street Journal ran a typically untruthful story, he says today, by saying that Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent explained to me that firing Jerome, this is actually, I thought this was a post about the distasteful letter / art piece that he sent allegedly to Jeffrey Epstein for Epstein's 50th birthday. But no, he's talking here, a story about Jerome Powell. Saying the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, explained to me that firing Jerome, too late Powell, the worst Federal Reserve chairman in history, would be bad for the market. Nobody had to explain that to me. I know better than anybody what's good for the market and what's good for the USA. If it weren't for me, the market wouldn't be at record highs right now. It probably would have crashed. It did crash and then came back. It's been a roller coaster ride as you pull the levers, sending the market shooting up and crashing down. Well, I think certain people are probably cashing in on that, especially if you can figure out when you're going to make certain kinds of announcements. He says, so get your information correct. Please don't explain to me. I explain to them. Okay. That's a pretty dangerous attitude to take sometimes. I know everything. You don't have anything to learn from you. Everybody has something to learn from somebody. Adam Schiff is a thief. He says he should be prosecuted just like they tried to prosecute me and everyone else. The only difference is we were totally innocent. It was all a giant hoax. Affidavit made pursuant to section of the tax property article, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's a lot of lawfare back and forth between the Dems and Trump. And this is, again, here, I highlight this. Tulsi Gabbard back at it. She is threatening legal action against people from the Obama administration, going all the way back to the 2016 election, saying, here's Trump posting about what she's been saying with regard to all of this. He says, in the months leading up to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community agreed that there was no intelligence that reflected that Russia was trying to hack the election. So it was very striking when we look back at the documents that I declassified and released that show there was a shift in early December, blah, blah, blah. And this is what Gabbard had to say on Fox News.
The months leading up to the November 2016 election, the intelligence community agreed that there was no intelligence that reflected that Russia was trying to hack the election in favor of either candidate. The evidence showed, the intelligence showed that, again, Russia did not have either the intent nor the capability to be able to impact the outcome of the United States election.
So, again, as I pointed out last night, this is sort of a verbal sleight of hand, because what she's really saying here, in my view, is that Russia did not have the means or the capability to hack into the voting machines to affect the tabulation of votes and effectively hack the election that way, which is what I think she's really trying to say, or is saying, which is selective use of particular pieces of intelligence. But if you look at the whole Mueller report, if you look at all of the evidence, you'll see that there is a lot of supporting evidence and truth surrounding the allegations that Russia was engaged in, of course, in information warfare in order to influence the outcome of the election, which they are highly capable of, which they have been engaged in for years and years and years and years and years. And we have seen absolute proof of Russian activity in the information ecosystem trying to affect political outcomes, not just in the United States, but in Canada, in Europe. They're very active with those kinds of campaigns all over the world, just as the United States is, just as virtually every country is. It's an information warfare age, and we talk about it here quite a bit. So it's a little disingenuous, honestly. And I was at one time also, pretty optimistic and supportive. I don't know if supportive is the right word, but I viewed Tulsi Gabbard in a very positive light. But when I see this sort of selective use of information in order to spin a narrative, I'm like, that's exactly what the people on the other side were doing in their own way. And I think in some ways, this is even worse. This is why, again, it's like a fake narrative. It's a story. It's not the story that is really being told by these politicians. And make no mistake, she is a politician, and she is very... Well, if you go look at her past, you can see why some people have had concerns about her allegiances, her activities, where she's been, who she was hanging out with, her trips to Syria, her apparent sympathies for Russia's interests. It took me a while to open my eyes to what she was really up to, and I get it. I understand the concerns. It's reflective here, but Trump reposts this because it benefits him at a time when he remains under intense scrutiny, and he's under attack even from people within his own base. Even tonight, as MAGA remains fractured, even though he has been posting saying, oh no, I have like 90% support still from people within the Republican Party, the GOP, the MAGA base. It's all still strong. No, there are definitely fractures there, and his political opponents are capitalizing on that. And people within the MAGA base tonight, still, a lot of them, a big percentage of them, upset. They're demanding accountability. They are disappointed. They want Trump to deliver on this promise to put out all the files, including the Epstein client list, if it even exists. This is why tonight I bring you this clip from Times Radio where Rich Logus, founder of Leaving MAGA, this guy was a huge Trump supporter. Like many others within the MAGA movement, he has become disillusioned. So much so that he actually left MAGA and has now created the Leaving MAGA movement. Here he is explaining why that has happened and talking about why the MAGA base is fractured and why people are disappointed. And it's, as he says, it's because either Trump and those major supporters around him were either lying before about the Epstein list existing, right up until Pam Bondi said that it was sitting on her desk, or they're lying now when they say that it doesn't exist. Either way, they're being caught in a lie.
We spoke to him earlier, and he told me, first of all, why he left initially.
So I like to paraphrase the American writer Ernest Hemingway and say that my epiphany happened gradually and then suddenly all at once. There were a variety of reasons that eventually led me to leave MAGA. There was the president's mismanagement of COVID. There were the stolen election lies, January 6th. Also, my governor here in Florida, Ron DeSantis, in the summer of 2021, began platforming anti-vaxxers at his pressers. And the final straw for me was May 24th, 2022, which was the Uvalde, Texas school shooting. And it was shortly after Uvalde when I quietly left MAGA. But I decided that I wanted to go public because I had always been so unapologetically public in my support for Trump. I felt I needed to reciprocate and do the same in renouncing Trump and the MAGA movement. And it was on August 30th of 2022 when I wrote a mea culpa, and I said in that article that I was sorry for supporting Trump and MAGA, that I made a mistake, and I wanted to apologize to anyone I may have hurt with my words and my deeds. And I call that day my Leaving MAGAversary. And the truth is, I never thought anyone would care, but it turned out people did care. They wanted to hear my story. And from all of that was birthed our organization last year, Leaving MAGA.
So you've watched, really, from knowing this group of people quite intimately for the last few years as Donald Trump gets re-elected again, and then how the row over the supposed Epstein files is starting to tear inside the Republicans. It's sort of started to tear apart the MAGA movement. What's happening?
So I think that there is a burgeoning cognitive dissonance that's pervasive across MAGA. And I think begotten from that cognitive dissonance is a lot of confusion and a lot of doubts. And there's a question about this Epstein story that I would ask respectfully that MAGA Americans think about, which is that if Donald Trump is lying about this Epstein list, then what else is it that he might be lying about? I think most people in MAGA, just like most Americans, Rosie, I believe that they do care about the safety and security of children. And it was promised that it would be revealed who may have aided and abetted Jeffrey Epstein. And now we're told that there's nothing to see. But for many, many months, the president, the vice president, MAGA influencers said that there was in fact a list, and now they're saying that there isn't. So they were either lying then or they're lying right now. And I think people in MAGA are starting to question their belief system and are starting to wonder if Trump is really as honest as they may have believed that he was, and if this is the movement that they thought that they were really supporting.
Why might this story be the one? We know that Donald Trump has said many contradictory things in the past. Why might it be this specific story that unpicks the support?
Well, you know, Jeffrey Epstein was a known sex trafficker, and I don't think it's unreasonable for Americans of all differing political beliefs to want to know who may have been directly associated with him, who may have actually participated in this sex trafficking. And I think that for those in MAGA, they want to know who may have been involved in this the way I believe that most Americans want to know. And the fact that
Oh, let me just pull that down. Okay, so you got the point there. Times Radio, you can see that entire interview over there on their channel. And it just shows that there is definitely an ongoing problem and that the cracks are spreading, not healing within the MAGA movement, because this story is not going away, at least not yet. That's why we are seeing Trump's political opponents making hay with this and capitalizing by recycling old clips and even bringing old newsmakers and Epstein victims out from the past into the present and reposting stuff and bringing out new information online. This is a clip from Maria Farmer, who was one of the first to sound the alarm on Jeffrey Epstein, going back to the 1990s, I believe. And here she is, recycled on social media, holding Trump accountable.
Ivana Trump was like her best friend.
And with
Ivana.
with Ivana, then I described that you know, she'd be there. How
that
often?
Was creepy. So at the time, Ivana had this. She was doing QVC, selling jewelry, right, online. I mean, on TV. She was like a QVC queen. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was always hanging out with Epstein, and Ivana was always hanging out with Ghislaine.
Right.
And Ivana would say, "We're going to go pick up Ivana, or Ivana's going to come," and we'd ride in the car with her. And I remember one occasion where Ghislaine's like, "I have to get out right now," and she went and got a number from a child, and I saw in a uniform.
Yeah. And
everybody knew what they were doing. Everybody who surrounded them knew exactly what they were doing.
And but how often? Did you go for rides often with her and Ivana? Or,
yes.
And would she pick up girls all the time?
Yes. She didn't bring them in the car. She would get their phone numbers.
Right.
But she would drive by schools.
Right. So
as they got out.
So would she? Yeah. And what's Ivana doing at this point? What sitting in
the car. And I'll never forget, because one day I was really weirded out by what had happened. I was really weirded out. So I'm sorry, my phone's beeping in. Just give it a second. But anyway, I've got to go in a second. But I just wanted to tell you, I was weirded out when they were driving around with this. So Ghislaine shut me up, gave me one of those cheap bracelets Ivana was selling on QVC, and said, "Ivana wants you to have this." And I threw it in the garbage.
And then over on CNN, where I don't think there's any love lost between Trump and that MSM media outlet, we're seeing Jeffrey Epstein's ex-girlfriend, talking about how Trump, quote, this is from them, groped her in Trump Tower in 1993. His hands, quote, all over her breasts and butt as Epstein watched. Let's just run it.
That Trump groped you in front of Epstein. I do want to note that CNN has spoken to 3 friends of yours who confirmed that you told them about this alleged incident over past decades. Can you tell me more about what happened that day and particularly how Trump and Epstein interacted?
Yeah, and before I get into the details of what happened, which, obviously I told you guys and I've shared with multiple outlets, the specifics of the assault that happened, I want to point out that I was polygraphed before I did all this by one of the most renowned examiners in the world. Michael Wolff has hundreds of hours of interviews with Jeffrey Epstein where Jeffrey confirmed to Michael what the two of them did to me long before I came out and told you all of this. So those are 2 critical data points that you need to have, and now I'll walk you through what happened. I was dating Jeffrey. He was always talking about Donald. It was his bestie and everything. And he was joking about how Donald thought I was hot and Donald thinks I'm this or whatever, wants to talk to you. And he was telling me this as we were taking a walk down Fifth Avenue one day. And he said, let's stop in and see him at his offices. So we went up to his office in Trump Tower. And within a couple of minutes, Donald was outside of his door. And his hands were all over me. They were on my breasts, they were on my butt, they were on, my hips, up and down, while the two of them just kept having a normal conversation. I don't remember exactly what was in the conversation. Again, this was, we're talking 90, this is 93 now. It was something about, it was irrelevant. It was like, oh, Stacey's career's on fire. She just did Sports Illustrated again, blah, 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 blah. And they were back and forth, smiling and grinning and carrying on a conversation while Donald ran his hands all over me. And, when that happens in broad daylight in someone's office and an assistant's walking back and forth, you're in shock. If it happens in a dark alleyway, right, you defend yourself. But when it's hidden in its brazenness like that, which is Donald Trump's forte, you go into shock. So I froze, and it was over and very quickly. It was a few minutes. And then we got back in the elevator, and Jeffrey's energy had changed. He was like seething. He was enraged. He wouldn't make eye contact with me. And then we got out on the street on Fifth Avenue, and he looked at me and he just started yelling at me, saying, why did you let him do that? And he was so enraged. And then I remember thinking, like, why did I? I felt like I was coming back into my body at that moment, and I was confused.
This sort of details just keep coming out. President of the United States. Trump doubling, tripling, quadrupling down over on Truth Social in the wake of these revelations. Some of them recycled, some of them new, something old, something borrowed, something true. Well, I don't know about this. He says his poll numbers within the Republican Party and MAGA have gone up significantly since the Jeffrey Epstein hoax, he says here on Truth Tonight, was exposed by the radical left Democrats and just plain troublemakers, using that phrase. They've hit 90%, 92%, 93%, and 95% in various polls and are all Republican Party records. The general election numbers are my highest ever, in caps. People like strong borders and all of the many other things I have done. God bless America, MAGA, he says. Scroll down here. There was another post here I wanted to show you. If it's still... Yeah, well, here's this post here. This was from yesterday saying that they're going to, he's asked them to release all the grand jury testimony, which in itself, here, it's actually still significant because that is one of the things, even that is now being questioned by many within the MAGA movement. Because his call to release the Epstein grand jury testimony, well, it's igniting skepticism among critics who, some of them are labeling it as a smoke screen to appease the fractured MAGA base without revealing significant new details. So, Trump directs Attorney General Pam Bondi to seek the release of pertinent or credible grand jury testimony from Epstein's sex trafficking case, posting on Truth Social, "This scam," he says, "perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now." Bondi then quickly responds on X, stating the Justice Department would move to unseal the transcripts, but many, including some Trump supporters, are calling this a hollow gesture. Why? Well, critics argue the grand jury testimony, already partially released in Epstein's 2006 Florida case, focuses only on evidence used to indict Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell, not the broader investigative files like FBI interviews, videos, or emails that could name high-profile associates. So we have posts on social media echoing this, claiming the testimony accomplishes nothing. It avoids naming others involved in Epstein's crimes. So the skepticism stems from a Justice Department memo released July 7th, which, of course, as we know, says, what? No client list was found. Yet Pam Bondi said it was sitting on her desk. No client list found or evidence of Epstein blackmailing prominent figures, contradicting earlier promises from Bondi and Trump and other allies within the MAGA movement of major revelations. So as we heard from the leaving MAGA founder, either they were lying then or they're lying now. Bondi's February claim on Fox News that she had this client list on her desk fueled expectations, only for her to later clarify she meant general files. This is a flip-flop, folks, and is coupled with Trump's dismissal of the Epstein saga as a hoax, which I think is also a miscalculation on his part. And his refusal to appoint a special counsel has led figures like Laura Loomer and Elon Musk to accuse the administration of dodging transparency. Wow, Laura Loomer. Yeah, she has been one of the most faithful of the faithful. Critics point out that grand jury testimony is a small fraction of the evidence, likely already public or heavily redacted to protect victims, and requires court approval, which could delay or limit release. Legal experts like Carl Tobias told BBC that convincing a judge to unseal sensitive testimony is tough, especially to protect victims' identities. So there's a built-in excuse to redact a lot of information, keep a lot of stuff hidden, even while Trump sits there and disingenuously says, release it all, anything credible, except all of this over here, and about 95% of all the stuff over there, which is the rest of it. Meanwhile, some MAGA supporters like Charlie Kirk praise the move. As I said, some of these MAGA faithful are circling the wagons, coming to Trump's defense, but others like Senator Mike Lee and Josh Hawley demand more. The FBI notes or search warrants, which Trump and Bondi haven't addressed. So this uproar intensified, of course, as we saw earlier last week with the Wall Street Journal report, which we did the encore presentation of Maverick News on that night. As that story broke, alleging that Trump sent Epstein that bawdy 2003 birthday letter, which he denies. And as a result of that, it has prompted a $10 billion lawsuit, $10 billion, against the Wall Street Journal from President Trump. And that has fueled theories that the testimony pushes distraction from damaging stories. with the MAGA base split, some burning hats in protest, as Dragon has pointed out when he's called in to contribute to the conversation and highlighted that even, I think, on the night that this story broke. Others are defending Trump. The Epstein controversy shows no signs of fading, and doubts about real transparency persist. And yet through it all, we've also talked about how Trump just has this art down to a science where he manages to portray himself as the victim, martyring himself, twisting the stories, managing perception, playing that Jedi mind trick that just seems to work time and time again. Will it work this time? I'd say he's in trouble, but maybe, just maybe, he'll squirm out of this one again. So much so that I'm beginning to wonder if maybe Trump himself hasn't set this up in some bizarre way, or the people around him haven't maybe set this up so that it's actually him being attacked and he's allowing the attack so that he can then cast doubt on it or find some way to squirm his way out of it, so that he then exonerates himself simply by casting enough doubt and confusion over the issue so that he can't be convicted of it, and then emerge and say, I told you I was innocent the whole time, and then capitalizing on his martyrdom again. Always the victim, while winning, but always under attack. And what president has been attacked more than President Trump? And yet always, isn't it strange how he always seems to just get out of it somehow at the end? He doesn't end up going to jail. Right when it just looks like he's just on the edge of losing it all, he emerges victorious. It's almost like, you know what? You couldn't write a script any more dramatic, or could you? It makes one wonder. It makes me wonder, especially when I look at who he has surrounded himself with this second administration. If you go down the list of all the people he has appointed to significant positions, Pete Hegseth, Sean Duffy, Dr. Oz, Jeanine Pirro, Dan Bongino, Carrie Lake, Mark Burnett. Okay? All these people are media people, all the way down the list. They're all performers, celebrities, social media influencers, TV stars. His entire administration is just filled with these people. Even the politicians themselves, in some ways, like even a Marco Rubio, they're all high profile. It's a reality TV show come to life in the White House. Linda McMahon, I mean, it's all about World Wrestling Entertainment. It's all about entertainment. Secretary of Education, Sylvester Stallone, like literally appoints Sylvester Stallone to a position in his administration, albeit special envoy to Hollywood along with John Voight. But tell me, isn't this just an all-star cast? Mel Gibson, Maria Bartiromo, TV celebrity, Laura Ingraham, Fox News. She's a board member at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Mark Levin, social media influencer. Now he's a member of the Homeland Security Advisory Council. Mike Huckabee, ambassador to Israel, high profile social media influencer, not just a politician. He has a big following on social media. Michael Waltz, national security advisor. Keith Kellogg, special envoy for Ukraine. He was a retired 3-star U.S. Army general and Fox News contributor. You got to remember, these guys all have high-profile media backgrounds. It's like central casting. He's even used that phrase from time to time. Trump has himself. It is a show on many levels, which is why tonight's thumbnail again, King of Fake Donald Trump talks about fake news, fake this, fake that, can't trust the MSM. Oh no, the 2016 election, there was no Russia involvement. It was all Russia hoax, and yet the evidence would suggest that Russians were definitely helping on the social media information warfare front. No question about it, and that continues even today. In fact, if you go look right now, NBC News tonight has broken a story illustrating exactly this point. Let me show you. You think Russia's not involved? Right here. A MAGA bot network on X is divided over the Trump-Epstein backlash. And if not Russia, there are other influences in place here. And even within MAGA itself, perhaps, I can show you this to illustrate what I'm talking about. This is a NBC breaking story. A previously unreported network, it says here on their website tonight, a previously unreported network of hundreds of accounts on X is using artificial intelligence to automatically reply to conservatives with positive messages about people in the Trump administration, researchers say. But with the MAGA movement split over the administration's handling of files involving deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, the account's messaging has broken. Oops! Backfiring, offering contradictory statements on the issue and revealing the AI-fueled nature of the accounts. Yeah, AI is not perfect. The network tracked for NBC News by both the social media analytics company Alethea and researchers at Clemson University consists of more than 400 identified bot accounts. These are fake accounts on X. Though the number could be far larger, the researchers say. Its accounts offer consistent praise for key Trump figures, particularly support for Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. As often as the case, the article continues, with bot accounts of those viewed by NBC News tended to have only a few dozen followers, and their posts rarely get many views, but a large audience does not appear to be the point. Their effectiveness, if they have any, is in the hope that they contribute to a partisan echo chamber and that en masse they can massage perceptions, said Darren Linville, the director of Clemson University's Media Forensics Hub, which studies online disinformation campaigns. He says here, they're not really there to get engagement. They're there to just be occasionally seen in those replies. The reason partly that they're there is because they generate the perception of credibility by posting these messages, and they get picked up by other people. They influence certain people. They can even put those messages intentionally using algorithms. They can put them in front of certain people in order to influence certain people, including major influencers, who then end up echoing those messages. It's all fake. Are you getting it? So Trump's in trouble, and so they launch a 400 fake account information warfare campaign in order to manage perception in favor of Donald Trump. So this is operating tonight, even as we speak. It's present. It's clear. Yeah, I think it is a danger to democracy because it is fake. It's a lie. It's a giant lie. They're putting out fake information and BS support for Donald Trump to bolster his support. Why? Who's behind it? Who is behind this? Here's some of the examples. It says, retweet if you believe Pam Bondi should be held accountable for her actions relating to Epstein's case and the FBI rollout. Let's bring justice. And then they have like a positive response to these things that they post. The coffin of perversion has been nailed shut as the case of Jeffrey Epstein is finally closed. Secrets may remain hidden, but no more victims will suffer at his hands. Justice, closure from this fake bot account named Carrie Wegley. Says here, for years, social media has been infested with inauthentic accounts designed to sway popular opinion, whether they're marketing firms pushing products or foreign governments and domestic groups pushing political propaganda. But that has become turbocharged with the rapid proliferation of AI chatbots that can write and post convincing messages without human intervention, and exacerbated by social media companies scaling back their moderation. And that is exacerbated by people like J.D. Vance. And here, I'll just show you again. There it is. Remember when J.D. Vance went over, was it to the EU, I believe? And he was like, you know, you shouldn't engage in so much censorship. Otherwise, your democracy isn't very resilient. I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. Well, when you let your guard down, in this area, certain adversaries will take advantage. And in this case, whoever's doing this is trying to benefit Trump. Maybe it's MAGA, maybe it's Trump himself, a network of people around him, 400 fake accounts, probably more, and using AI to leverage it. It's a real thing, believe it or not. Let's take a little break. I'll come back on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Back. Let's move on from all the MAGA insanity. It wears you down. It really does. At least it's wearing me down. I'm immersed in it every day, of course, maybe a little more than a lot of people, just because I'm sitting in the chair and preparing for the broadcast every night. But it's depressing, honestly. After a while, it screws with your head. And a lot of it is because of what's going on online. The crazy distortions, the way that information is twisted, everything's flipped upside down. You don't know what's real a lot of the time anymore. It's hard to stay grounded. And if you allow yourself to get pulled down into these narratives, these dark hole, rabbit hole narratives, you risk losing your sanity. I really believe that. And I think that there's evidence of that sometimes even around us, right? And just the constant lying. Well, I shouldn't actually just pivot away entirely from it. Just a couple of more things about the Trump-Epstein thing, okay? People, again, recycling a lot of what Trump has said in the past now coming out. This is why it's not going away, because there's just too much of a trail, too much credible stuff to link him to Epstein, and too much embarrassing behavior, very public embarrassing behavior from Trump over the years that people are highlighting now, saying, hey, where there's smoke, there might be fire. Like this television appearance where he's talking about, there's this famous exchange where he's talking about, hey, my daughter's so hot that if she wasn't my daughter, I'd probably date her myself, and talking about her maybe being in Playboy.
It would be really Disappointing? Not really. But it would depend on what was inside the magazine.
If she posed, it would be fine. But if they put her picture on...
Yeah, but it depends on what goes inside the magazine.
Well, see, that's her gripe. That's this girl's gripe.
And
People assume there'll be nude photos.
Right, you do assume that with Playboy.
Okay,
but if there weren't, you wouldn't have an issue with it then. If they were using her to...
I don't think Ivanka would do that inside the magazine, although she does have a very nice figure. I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her. You know?
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop
You know what? You are sick.
Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
Well,
you're known for saying outrageous things, Mr. Trump.
Who are you, Woody Allen?
People refer to that all the time. And there it is again. Back up, front and center. Good luck, Donald. This is not going away anytime soon. Okay, this other story, also horrific. 14-year-old arrested, North York, Ontario, for the death of Shanaz Pestanji. Toronto police earlier obtained judicial authorization to identify the 14-year-old and release his image. Now, I can't show you the image, even though they received judicial authority to do that. You see, in Canada, we have the Youth Criminal Justice Act, and that prevents media outlets from identifying young offenders under a certain age. So 14, too young. That being said, there are exceptions made from time to time, and the reason Toronto Police, North York, managed to get judicial authority to release the identity and the image of the 14-year-old suspect is because when they were searching for the suspect, there was a manhunt on, or a teen hunt. They became aware that there were social media posts out there where the suspect or someone resembling the suspect had been posting online, making references to the crime itself. So they got a special release from the judge, from a judge, in order to post an image of the young person they were looking for and permission to release the name of the suspect they were looking for. They've now made the arrest. They've effected an arrest in relation to this crime. And as a result, the permission has now been removed again. So you can't, now you're not allowed to show the image or name the suspect again. So that story, let me get the notes out here, get you the most recent information. So this was a few days ago, and I lost my tab here. Let me take a quick break. I'm going to come back. Sorry, I hate it when I do that. I do apologize, but I want to make sure I get you the correct information in a way that won't result in a lawsuit against us because we inadvertently identify the suspect.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching. The world is watching. On TV.
The entire world is watching.
On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, so I have this. Here's the media release from police. And this is the most up-to-date information. Male youth arrested in homicide investigation, Parkway Forest Drive and Shepherd Avenue East area. Victim, Shanaz Pestanji, 71. Update, judicial authorization to identify young person has expired, as I said. And photograph and name can no longer be published and broadcast. Now, I can tell you, there is video. There are still images out there on social media of the suspect. You can go find them, but I'm not running them here because of this. Toronto Police Service making the public aware of an arrest made in a homicide investigation Thursday, July 17th. At approximately 9:37 a.m., police responded to a call for a stabbing in the Parkway Forest Drive and Shepherd Avenue East area. It is reported that officers located a female victim in her 70s who had been stabbed. The suspect fled the area prior to police arrival. Life-saving measures were commenced, and the victim was transported to hospital by emergency run. The victim was pronounced deceased in hospital. The victim has been identified as Shanaz Pestanji, 71 of Toronto. A 14-year-old male suspect was identified for the homicide. Police obtained judicial authorization to identify a young person. The judicial authorization which permitted the identification of the young person has expired. The name of the young person and their photograph can no longer be published or broadcast. On Sunday, July 20th, the suspect was arrested in Toronto following a coordinated effort by multiple units across the Toronto Police Service. A male youth, 14 of Toronto, has been arrested and charged with second-degree murder. He is scheduled to appear in court at the Ontario Court of Justice, 10 a.m. in room 606 on the 21st, tomorrow. Anyone with information is asked to call police at 416-808-3300 or Crime Stoppers anonymously. And we'll leave it at that for now. We may come back to that in the days or weeks ahead as the case winds its way through the courts, depending on the relevance of the news story at the time or the new information that becomes available. But that was a major breaking story on the Canadian side, and an unusual story because of the identification, the decision to release the identification of the 14-year-old suspect who is Black, and that has also just fueled the whole race thing, for many people. Oh, and this was another thing. This is also why the Epstein stuff for Trump is just not going away. Let me show you these memes. This is the other aspect to all this. Like, just factual information aside, then you just have the whole social media ecosystem. And then there's this, because you have that CEO from that, I think it was like a media company. Anyway, at that Coldplay concert with the co-worker, says these Coldplay concerts are no joke. And then we've got Epstein in that infamous photograph with him and Trump. And it ain't going away. They're hammering on Trump with this. Yeah, no escape this time for Trump. The king of fake bot accounts, fake narratives, spinning up maybe even manufactured intelligence, which he accused Obama of doing, using Tulsi Gabbard to help him do that with selective use of information, because, selective use of information can create distortions that are the equivalent of essentially lying. Then that brings us all the way over here to the way Trump interacts with international leaders. And we're seeing Vladimir Putin up to his usual tricks, spinning a narrative the way that he wants to spin it as well, with doublespeak. And here he is tonight, being quoted. This is Mario Knopfel. Putin to Trump, we want peace in Ukraine and their land too. So he had a call with Trump, and Putin says he's open to ending the Ukraine war through talks, but still wants to hit every goal Russia set at the start. He says they discussed prisoner swaps, Iran, and Middle East tensions, but Putin made clear Moscow isn't stepping away from its demands. He's called the war's root causes unresolved, and nod to Russia's NATO paranoia, which Trump has previously echoed. So that's why I've just kind of given up taking much of this seriously, because again, what's he really saying here? Oh yes, we want peace as long as Ukraine just surrenders. That's not negotiating. That's just saying we're not giving up. We want peace as long as we get to win and get everything we want. Well, Zelensky tonight is calling, I know as well, for a resumption of ceasefire talks. This after Ukraine launched a whole new barrage of drone attacks on Moscow, sending a message directly to the Kremlin. Yes, you are not invincible. We can reach out and touch you. This is not a war that is over. I also find this Epstein stuff, the timing of it, very interesting and suspect, because it comes just as Trump appears to be pivoting on the Russia-Ukraine issue and then making provisions to allow Ukraine to have these Patriot missiles and more weapons, as long as Europe pays for them. Either way, it opens the door to more weapons shipments, many of which have already arrived in Ukraine already. And I'm sure that that's not anything that the Kremlin or Putin is happy about. And then suddenly, while he's doing that, while Trump is pivoting that way, you see this Epstein thing blow up. Knowing what I know about the way Russian information campaigns work, it just makes me wonder how much fuel the Russian influence machine is pouring on this social media fire. 400 bot accounts on this side and that side, because at the end of the day, still, you might say that Putin, I don't know. You don't know what's real, what's going on, but you know that there's push and pull out there. So now that he's had this phone call, is Trump now still in Putin's good graces or not? It's too confusing. And as I say, if you think about it too much, it will drive you insane. I'll come back. There's more. I have to stop talking about this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I had an idea, and you guys get to help out with it. I'm always looking for new material, new movies or media to run during Maverick Midnight Matinee. Stuff that's of quality, preferably, not just junk, crappy old movies. I want quality cinema or TV shows, stuff that is thought-provoking and relevant even to our time. And then I got to thinking, MAGA, Musk, Mars, world peace, COVID, cold viruses, ostriches. Speaking of which, I think we will probably see some sort of decision on that crazy ostrich story from British Columbia sometime this week. Maybe even tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised. Tomorrow, Tuesday, midweek, maybe. That's my guess. Can't say for sure. It depends on how long it takes the court to reach a decision on that. But keep your radar up. When it happens, we'll bring you the information. That being said, this is a special project, and you guys get to help. War of the Worlds. Drones. I was thinking we should run War of the Worlds on Maverick Midnight Matinee. Then I got to thinking about all the drones and world peace and Ukraine, Russia, Middle East, blah, blah, blah. Ronald Reagan. Remember this clip, this old famous clip?
And more secure for you and your children. I couldn't help at one point in my discussions privately with General Secretary Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species from another planet outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together.
We are. And I have decided that as long as I get enough support from you guys, because you have to help with this, we are going to produce our own version of War of the Worlds. Yes. And you guys get to participate. You get to play roles. So this is a casting call of sorts. Forewarning. I'm warning you, we're going to do this. We're going to produce War of the Worlds as one of the Maverick Midnight Matinee episodes. But you guys get to be in the show. It's an idea I just came up with a while back. I've been developing it. I'm working on a storyline, a script to adjust the War of the Worlds classic script to suit our purposes. And I think it's going to be so much fun. It will also be thought-provoking. It might even help promote world peace. I'm serious. And you guys can help. So keep that in mind. I'm going to be coming back to this in the days ahead, talking about it more, explaining how you can be involved. I need your help. I can't do it alone. We need a cast of players, the Maverick Night Players. Theater. They used to say old radio was like theater of the mind, right? Well, I'm not sure exactly how to describe what we will end up doing here on social media on the Maverick News platform, because we do have video. We have the most powerful medium ever created by mankind at our disposal right here. You guys get to use it with me to tell this classic story and maybe even bring the world a little bit closer together by bringing together a cast of characters who, over the years here on Maverick News, some people would disagree with each other. And I think that we're going to show exactly what Reagan has said here. Maybe if we bring people together with a common adversary, aliens from another world, we'll all realize that we're all just human beings and we need to live in peace. Anyway, it's going to be fun. I want you guys to think about it. I've got a whole storyline worked out. I've been working on it. Just one of many projects that I'm working on behind the scenes here. This one I'm pretty excited about. So more explanations on that in the days and maybe in weeks ahead. I think we'll probably be able to do this. It should be ready within the next 2 to 4 weeks. So sometime within the next month, we'll be able to go ahead and present this Maverick Midnight Matinee original production of War of the Worlds, which is all about, of course, what? The Martians invading Earth. Well, that being said, I'm going to leave you tonight with Maverick and the News Brothers and their creation, this creation of MAGA Mars, song we played before, because Elon Musk is going to play a role in this new version of War of the Worlds here on Maverick as well. Thank you, guys. Love you. I will see you all back here tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern on The Flip Side.
He's got a plan, it's bold and grand, taking over land, sea and sand. Canada's ours, Greenland's in the mix, the Panama Canal's just another fix. But Mars, oh Mars, you pesky red sphere, your spying drones are making it clear. It's a threat to Earth, a cosmic sin, but don't worry folks, he'll make Mars great again. MAGA Mars, you're the 53rd state. Under Trump, your future is great. With Elon Musk and the Space Force too, we're slapping tariffs on your Martian crew. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. We'll impose sanctions, taxes, and fines. Martian exports know they're crossing the line. The Martians cry foul, but Trump doesn't care. He'll build a space wall floating up there. Elon's on board with rockets ablaze. The stock market's loving this Martian craze. He says, trust me folks, I know the deal. Martian gold is ours, this plan is real. MAGA Mars, you're the 53rd state. Under Trump, your future is great. With Elon Musk and the Space Force too, we're slapping tariffs on your Martian crew. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. Yeah, Mars hotels with golf resorts, intergalactic trade reports, a MAGA dome where Martians bow. We've got the best Martians, Trump says now. Fake news claims the plan's absurd, but Trump tweets back, it's the final word. Martian drones not on my watch. Space Force ready to kick it up a notch. MAGA Mars, you're the 53rd state. Under Trump, your future is great. With Elon Musk and the Space Force too, we're slapping tariffs on your Martian crew. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. So buckle up for the Martian fight. Trump's taking over the Martian night. It's all for freedom, it's all for the win. Oh, say can you see, he'll make Mars great again. Make Mars great, yeah, make Mars ours. Wave that flag on the red rock stars. So buckle up for the Martian fight. Trump's taking over the Martian night. It's all for freedom, it's all for the win. Oh, say, can you see, he'll make Mars great again.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.